Today on the show, we have Andy, co-founder of the Rollup. Andy's got a lot of great information to share with us about the modular thesis, about airdrops, and about what he's built as far as a content business in crypto. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Been a long time coming from the last bull. You blew up pretty fast, doing really well done educational content, and I think there's something to be said about educational content in the space not getting as much love as the 100x airdrop farms. So, yeah.
Yeah, glad to have you. Andy and I go way back. I don't remember when we first met, but it had to be years ago at this point. But yeah, first time we've actually done a collaboration. So really excited to have him on. Andy, for people who may have not come across your content before, you want to give a intro of yourself?
Yeah, cheers, man, for sure. So I'm Andy. The story kind of runs in an interesting way. Back in university, I went to the University of Florida, and I was very interested in crypto because my college roommate stopped partying with us my freshman year in 2017, and he wouldn't leave his room on his computer. So I went one day and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, "I'm trading Bitcoin." So I dove down like the rabbit hole on Bittrex, altcoins, and leverage on BitMax, and ended up starting this Bitcoin blockchain club at the University of Florida with my now co-founder Rob, and we were really focused on like learning about Bitcoin and educating as many students as we could. We grew that big time. Then 2018 came. I lost all of it in BitMEX. The club shrunk. Kind of took a break from crypto. Rob and I kind of parted ways, and I ended up starting an online marketing company the following year, doing like copywriting and building email marketing funnels and click funnels and websites for clients in the e-com space, influencers, info products, this kind of stuff. I ended up dropping out, moving states, and kind of going all in on that business. And then came 2019, 2020, we had the rise of DeFi summer. I found out about it just through Bankless and through going on CoinGecko and seeing all these different yield-bearing assets like a USDC or in Aave wrapped DAI token and things. And I decided just to ape all in DeFi and just see what happens. And so we also started our content business called DeFi Slate back then. And that was really just focused on, yield farming, Uniswap, AMMs, lending. What is DeFi? What is this space? And we persisted through the bear market, had some rough vibes, then bad choices, bad market, rough overall sentiment, no desire for content or marketing. We decided about a year ago to rebrand to the Rollup, and I say we, it's Rob and myself and a team of 6 others now. And basically, we saw this trend towards rollups and L2s. Arbitrum was gearing up for its airdrop, Optimism, and other rollups were coming online. And because of the congestion in Ethereum during DeFi summer, it was kind of obvious. And so, we've been pushing that hard. We have a podcast, tons of different educational material around rollups. About 3 or 4 months ago, we decided to further niche and kind of focus not just on rollups, but on this concept of modular blockchains and modular rollups. And have since really kind of developed this modular thesis. A little plug, Patrick and I are actually going to team up a bit for Modular March. We have an amazing event lineup of speakers, presentations, panels, spaces, and game shows with Coinbeats, Patrick's new project. And so stay tuned for that. We'll have more info. But yes, that's kind of the story, and super focused on providing quality educational content for the space, and very focused on modular blockchains and rollups and DeFi, and a little bit of airdrop farming and tokenless projects, which we'll get into in a bit.
Yeah, no, great intro. We'll definitely get into some airdrop farming. And for people who maybe haven't looked at the rollups content, it's phenomenal. I'll say when I, for example, wanted to learn about Celestia, wanted to learn about different components of the modular stack, I started out looking at the rollup, and that got me probably 90% of the way there, just because you guys have so much in-depth content about these things, interviews, written Twitter posts, all kinds of stuff. For people who, before we get into a little bit more about airdrops, your theses on the market and all that, for people who want to check out the rollup, where can they do so?
Yeah, so I have my Twitter pinned here in the name, and then just jump on that, and you'll see in my bio we have a Twitter. Also check the links in the description. We have a YouTube, Spotify, and our site. So check that out. And yeah, I appreciate the plug. We'll be doing tons more content in Denver, live interviews, and then of course Patrick and I are collaborating for Modular March. So that should be fun.
Sweet. Yeah, looking forward to it. Before we get into the modular thesis a little more, a couple follow-up questions about building a content business in crypto. Of course, something I have some experience with as well. But what do you think was the thing that differentiated the Rollup in that you were able to survive the bear market and come back, I would say, very strong, where I see your content being shared frequently? And whereas a lot of people who were making content before the bear market, you kind of don't see them as much anymore.
Yeah, the bear market was rough. We toned down the team, content, all of that, shifted focus, and just kind of had a rough time like everyone. But I think the underlying reason is that our business was never predicated on like shilling tokens and being like a big time like token factory-esque thing. We were always curious ourselves. So Rob and I think of ourselves as like this middleware where you've got like these gigabrain devs and builders, and then you've got the people that we're trying to onboard, and in the middle you've got people like us, you included Pat, who are able to kind of distill this information and these concepts down. And so we kind of kept that curiosity going, and also we just had that conviction, which obviously you're still here and you did that. It wasn't so obvious after 2017 cycle that it was going to come back. That's why I kind of went and did my online marketing business, and then kind of saw in the early stages of the next bull. But this time it was so drop dead obvious. It was not going anywhere. Bitcoin was here to stay. ETH was here to stay. DeFi is going to keep being innovated. And so I think that just like staying up to keeping tabs on the market helped a lot, and just staying interested in the new concepts. And then also just leaning into our own convictions. So, you know, we fully back this rollup-centric roadmap by Vitalik. And so for that, we put our money, our time, our capital. And so that led us to, you know, lean into our curiosities and our convictions and really try to make the best quality work. And then similarly with this modular stuff, which is really blowing up, while it is a current trend, and I don't expect it to have as much hype as it does now forever, it's still something that, again, we're actively investing capital, we're actively investing time, working with these projects and continuously learning. So I would say it's all about that conviction and desire to learn. And man, you know, once you go through a couple of cycles, it feels like each one is easier each time.
Yeah, especially when you can build connections. I mean, one thing I tell people, if you want to get more leverage on the market, one way you can do that is actually to put yourself out there, make content, build connections in the space. I mean, I don't remember exactly when you started, but 5 years ago, less than that, 4 years ago, I was just some guy. I had no connections, no online presence or anything. And now I know all sorts of people in the space, and I don't know exactly when you started, but it's still possible, people, to actually build that reputation and presence for yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing. Are you just going to ditch all the friends that you've made at conferences and in various collaborations and partnerships, and just, you know, and just pack up and leave? It's not just like you're leaving the market; you're leaving like a community. And so, you know, I think that's a strong force too.
Absolutely. Last question on the business side of things before we get into modular thesis and airdrops. One thing I noticed about you is you also seem very connected to what some people might call money Twitter, which is kind of the people on Twitter who are about, you know, building other sorts of online businesses. And I think especially as crypto is doing better, I've noticed there's more and more crossover between people who are crypto interested and people who are generally into online, online business. What do you see as the overlap between those two different groups of people?
Yeah, man, for sure. So when I had started that online marketing company, when I left college, that's where I started to grow my presence. Originally, I think I had like, I don't know, up to 10K followers in that niche, doing a lot of like online marketing educational content. And now, yeah, it's kind of crossed over in a sense where, for a couple of reasons, I think number go up technology works in everyone's favor in terms of accruing interest. But I also think from like a investor perspective, the people that are curious about crypto and are willing to risk capital are young people, the ages of 18, 17 to like mid to late 30s, 40s. And then of course you've got like the institutions who are much older, but that's a whole different flow. And so I think that sector of people that like the money Twitter, those are guys who are interested in bettering themselves. They've got a lot of platitudes and mantras about self-improvement, making money, being consistent. And so I think investing into crypto is a way that they've personally seen like, I can't just work on my business all the time and not multiply my actual earnings in some sort of asset. So, properties, stocks. But similarly to my thesis, and I think a lot of them probably share this as well, as might you, is our generation has came into a very interesting spot in the world where real estate is at all-time highs. Interest rates are very high now. Stocks are at all-time highs. Bonds aren't paying that much unless you have tons of capital. Other asset classes are like, they're almost been rigged against us, where our generation, it's quite hard to get a job, a well-paying job, and to sustain that. And then your options for where you invest your capital are kind of tough. Like, are you really buying the S&P today as it trades at 5,000? Like, sure, it's probably going to go up higher over time, but like, I feel like crypto presents this asymmetric opportunity to those types of people, online entrepreneurs, young people who kind of have this chip on their shoulder that's like, man, like our generation is, and I'm saying like Gen Z and millennials are we kind of got screwed here in the sense of asset appreciation. What other choice do we have? Crypto's still so early and nascent. To me, it's the best upside potential, even if it has more risk. So I think that's like a big crossover, generally like the self-improvement desire to make more money, as well as like the cyclical kind of flow of interest in the bull and bear.
Yeah, well put. Awesome. So let's change topics a little. Modular thesis. There might be people watching this who are wondering in their heads, what is a modular blockchain? What is a rollup? Your words. What are those?
Yeah. So if you think of traditional blockchains and their concept, they're effectively like a big database where you have different functions within blockchains that make a blockchain a blockchain. So at its core, you have three overall functions. You've got the settlement, which is effectively transactions being confirmed and validated on chain. You've got the execution, which is basically like the ordering of the transactions, the processing and the kind of what's called a virtual machine. So effectively like getting the transaction in. And then you've got like the data availability or data publishing, which is like where your transaction information is effectively posted to the chain from a rollup to a blockchain or just in a blockchain in general. So basically you have three components that make a blockchain. And in traditional chains, so things like, I don't know, even going back to like EOS and Litecoin, Solana, Say now, and several other examples, they put all of these functions into one chain, called a monolithic chain. So all of the functions of a blockchain are done within one architectural stack. You can almost think of it as like a horizontal manner. Modular blockchains kind of like unbundle this. So they kind of take each part of each of those three parts of a monolithic chain, and what they do instead is they insert specific parts into this. So you've got one data availability layer, execution layer, and a settlement layer, which is typically Ethereum as a settlement layer. And basically, you're able to insert specialized code bases into this chain and build a stack of specialized parts to make the greater functionality of the entire blockchain stronger, faster, cheaper, more secure. And so basically what I've come to realize in my learnings is that modular blockchains is about effectively solving the blockchain trilemma of security, cost, and speed without sacrificing the core principles of decentralization and the ethos of crypto as to why we're here today. So if I had to put it, it's about unbundling the functions of a traditional blockchain and inserting specialized parts to make the greater whole more powerful and more scalable. It's all about unlocking this block space to allow for more innovative applications and use cases for blockchains. So then to kind of like put this into rollups, so where a rollup comes in is, it's called a rollup because it effectively rolls up transactions and puts them into one. So you can think of it as there's this L1 or Ethereum as like the main transaction hub, like the main blockchain. And you've got rollups on top of it, Arbitrum, Optimism, etc. It's a different blockchain that has different parameters that are specifically function for speed and for low costs. And these transactions are rolled up into one and put into a block on the Ethereum main chain. And so that's kind of like the thesis behind scaling Ethereum, is this kind of roll-up centric roadmap. So more roll-ups that settle back to Ethereum. And then furthermore, I'm actually even more excited about modular roll-ups, which we can kind of tackle as well.
Yeah. So what would be some examples of modular rollups in terms of specific chains?
Yeah, so I think the best one that we have today is Manta, which uses Celestia for its data availability layer. So that Celestia is a ZK EVM, Manta is a ZK EVM built on Polygon CDK, Chain Development Stack or Kit, which basically, instead of using Ethereum for its data publishing or its data availability, it opts to use Celestia, which brings up to 100x cheaper fees. And cost savings up to about $1.5 million in the last month. I had a podcast today with Kenny, the founder of Manta, and he said in the last month they've saved $1.5 million. And that goes right back into the hands of users. So users pay less fees. There's more of that liquidity going around into the ecosystem dApps. There's less revenue theoretically for the Manta sequencer, the Ethereum validators, but this revenue is put back into the hands of the users. And then these scalable low-cost blockchains then allow for super high throughput applications, gaming, very highly financialized, quick applications where you can do more and more transactions. And so to kind of wrap this thought up as to why modular rollups are kind of, especially with alternative DA, are very exciting, is because in crypto right now, we kind of have this thing called an anti-network effect, where as a dApp on a specific chain gets very, very popular, let's think of something like one of the Bored Ape mints. When there was the land mint in 2022, I think it was the other side. I remember people were paying $2,000 to mint this on-chain. And so what this does is you've got this idea, or you've got this application that has strong demand. But the core principles of blockchain effectively have led it so that strong demand leads to higher fees, which leads to then a negative flywheel of less people transacting, less demand. And so it kind of creates this anti-network effect, where when you post a video on YouTube, Pat, and it starts getting a lot of traction, YouTube pushes it. It has a positive effect. More people see it, more people watch it, and it's got this flywheel that works in our favor as creators. Whereas in blockchains, it's unfortunately the opposite. So I believe that modular rollups, specifically with alternative DA, solve for this. And I don't want to get too deep. There's other kind of solutions. Alternative DA is just kind of one of them, which I think can kind of lead to more positive flywheel effects. So that's some of the cost savings, some of the thesis. And Manta as a practical example of what modular rollups can enable for cost savings and for other innovative apps.
Interesting. So Manta, you said they saved $1.5 million. Was that right?
Just this month.
Just this month. So where would that money have gone if they hadn't saved it?
So basically, users would have paid higher fees on the network to transact, which would have effectively went to the Manta sequencer or prover, which is basically like the organizational, centralized, in-house, you can kind of think of it, transaction processing and batching hardware. And then the rest of it would have went to Ethereum validators for paying for data publishing on Ethereum L1. So basically, it goes to Ethereum, the Ethereum network, instead of back into the hands of the users. And so that is like a massive cost reduction for the users of Manta.
So what is the implication for the future of Ethereum if you now have this one use case? And it's a hypothetical question, but although
Yeah.
hypothetical, basically to sort of get to the heart of the matter. What's the implication for Ethereum if you have their functioning previously as a settlement and data availability layer, then you have now this one portion of that data availability that will be abstracted away to, or not abstracted, but moved to other solutions like Celestia, EigenDA, and others. Does that mean that there will be less Ethereum burn than there would be otherwise?
Yeah, good question. I'm actually not sure if I can speak to exactly on the Ethereum burn, but I assume less data being posted in blocks on Ethereum chain means less transactional and state storage needed. So perhaps then yes, it could lead to less burn. I think the broader implications are around this idea of Ethereum, specifically this conversation about DA, but also the EVM and using alternative VMs as well. I think that the Ethereum thesis as a global settlement layer for rollups and for modular rollups is the kind of best use case for Ethereum. I think that the Ethereum asset class thesis is being kind of fragmented into Celestia. If you're bullish on Celestia, if you're bullish on ARB or OP, you could buy those tokens. So I'm quite bullish on Ethereum, but I think that even though it's going down this data-focused path with EIP 4844, which is scheduled, I think, for about 1 month, which will significantly lower the cost of Arbitrum optimism transactions. So it's quite bullish still as a data availability layer. It's not going to lose it entirely, because the trade-off is Manta has less decentralization from using Celestia than it would for using Ethereum, but it has much less costs for that. So you pay for the decentralization that Ethereum brings as a data availability layer, but you sacrifice the cost. And so that's kind of like the trade-off. So I think generally the Ethereum as an asset class is strong, but I think it'll slowly start to really fit in the picture as the settlement layer for all these modular rollups, which are using alternative DA solutions like Celestia, Avail, Eigenlayer, Near, Zero Gravity, and these alternative virtual machines, like Cartesi, Movement, Fluent, Solana VM, and all these different types of code bases, which a lot of those are tokenless projects that I think there will be nice juicy airdrops to as well, which we can kind of dive into. But generally, I think Ethereum as a settlement layer is the future for it.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's dive into Celestia a little bit, and then also, because it's just launched, a lot of it's popular topic this week, also Dimension.
Yeah, man. So I think this. So let's talk about Celestia. Celestia has this kind of 3-3 mechanism going, right? Where you stake TIA for more modular airdrops or airdrops from other projects. Very interesting mechanism, because they're partnering with so many different projects that it's quite a lengthy list, right, of who could be airdropped. So I think Celestia as an asset has this really interesting meme going where you stake it to earn airdrops, and lo and behold, DIM, was airdropped. And also DIM was airdropped to different NFT communities like Pudgy Penguins and Mad Lads and Tensorians and Bad Kids. So that's quite an interesting meta as well. Yeah, I'll just stop there. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, actually, let's dive into this airdrop meta a little bit more. My thoughts on it is, I forget who said this, but I saw a really good analogy on Twitter, or not, yeah, I guess comparison rather, saying airdropping to 10,000 Pudgy Penguins holders. I know there's, because some people have multiple, it's not really 10,000, but say they're saying airdropping to 10,000 Pudgy Penguins holders is vastly different than airdropping to 10,000 random wallets with a certain dollar amount in them on Ethereum, because the people who are Pudgy Penguins holders are going to be more likely to be engaged. They're going to be more likely to be active in the community, and so on and so forth. And so I think that's actually a pretty interesting concept. I had a few Tensorians, so I benefited from that with the Dimension airdrop as well. But I mean, I think it's an interesting concept for these projects that are trying to bootstrap their community, where they can actually look at who is engaged, and then say, okay, that is someone we want to have in our community already. And it kind of reminds me of this concept we heard a lot about with NFTs back in 2021, which is that they're kind of like your digital, not digital ID, but they're, it's kind of like your digital resume in a sense, where people can see what you've done, who you're involved with, which communities you're in. And then if you're launching a token, naturally you might say, okay, these communities are the sorts of people that we would want to bring into our community.
Yeah, because the meta back then was like Bored Apes were launching their own coin to themselves, which is almost like I saw a tweet. It was like, it's almost like the project going in debt because they have to launch this token to like fund their project to pump or to fund an economy. This is like external projects rewarding community members and basically buying marketing from these projects. And so I've been on several calls this week with founders who are considering airdropping to pudgies, little pudgies, Tia stakers, dim stakers, Tensorians, mad lads, bad kids. It's the same for NFTs. It's Tia stakers, and dim is getting tossed in there now a bit. I think big alpha here. I think Avail, what I consider the Superman and Robin of DA is Avail. So Celestia and Avail, equivalent, I think, in like overall valuation potential. Tech is differentiated in various ways, but they have a strong partnership with Dimension. So if that gets airdropped to dim stakers, there's going to be another flywheel there, because dim stakers are going to start to receive Rollup airdrop potentially. And so, my strategy on this is like stake Tia. I'm not doing this 50 wallets madness. I'm doing an amount that I think will be over the Sybil attack amount, because we were chatting earlier, like all these guys are doing 50 wallets, 10 Tia, 20 Tia, and it's just like, it's kind of a mess. And so I think like 1 or 2 wallets with an amount that you think is going to be over like the Sybil limit. Same with dim. That's my general strategy. Atom, Osmo as well. And I expect more. I expect 10 to 15 more airdrops for Tia stakers this year. And I'd say at least several for dim as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at hundreds of applications launching, one thesis I have as well is, maybe you have more insight than me. I feel like there's going to be hundreds of modular blockchains launching, if not thousands. And it kind of reminds me of 2020, when you went from having a couple DeFi applications where it was like, oh, that's a novel concept, you can do this, this, and this, to suddenly you had more than any one person could keep track of. And back then, Chainlink became one of the main ways that people would bet on it. And I know there was criticisms at the time, how much money are they making? How are they accruing value from that? But the fact of the matter was that people were saying, okay, there's thousands of DeFi applications launching. You can't bet in all of them, but you can choose the infrastructure that they're all using. And to me, some of these data availability layers, or in the case of Dimension, the infrastructure for launching rollups, that could be how people actually bet on this trend.
I think you bet on it with the RAS providers, the gelatos, the alt layers. Those are the 2 liquid tokens. I'm sure there's going to be more coming out. You've got the interop, like the hyperlanes, the unions, the connects, the acrosses, the all these various interops that you can airdrop from. Jumper is another one. Then you've got like these alternative VMs. You've got like Cartesi, Fluent, Movement, Pontem, Lumio, Solana VM, Eclipse. You got all these different ones, and then you've got Celestia, Veil, Near. So you got all these different parts of the stack, which exactly you're right. Let's say they go and build 1,000 blockchains in the next year. if a couple of those accrue value in terms of being a hit, like a consumer app or something that is a really novel concept, then ultimately I think that this fat protocol thesis or fat infra thesis continues, where if I've got an app that's got 100,000 users on on a blockchain or a modular rollup that's using Celestia, then theoretically you would assume Celestia accrues that value, not only just by fees, but by mind share. And so, yeah, I think that thesis is really smart and can expand to other parts of the stack, not just DA.
Yeah, one thing I thought of as well, and I am a big fan of Celestia, I've talked about it a lot on this channel, is that there hasn't really been a single token. Atom was close, but there hasn't really been a single token that has solidified its position as the token of the Cosmos ecosystem. And Atom was probably the closest thing that there was, but there's some, it didn't get quite all the way there. But
Yeah.
if you could have one token that was widely used for gas on different Cosmos chains, that could be used as collateral, that was used as basically money, then if Cosmos continues to expand, I think that could do well. And I actually think that TIA has a shot at that role.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite interesting, and they just timed it perfectly as well. So, I mean, I put out multiple tweets. If you guys check out my handles there, I've got so many tweets about these tokenless protocols, and many of them I just named. And I legitimately think that we're gonna we're gonna have this like era of just modular blockchain deployment token launches, and I think that TIA and DIM positioning is probably some of the best. Not financial advice. Obviously, I have positions here. But I'm quite excited for that. And yeah, that's about my airdrop alpha for the day right there.
Right on, right on. Awesome. So transitioning to something that we're collaborating on coming up, Modular March. It's in a few weeks. We're recording this on the 9th. It'll probably be out in a few days. What is Modular March? What can people expect?
Yeah, so the goal for Modular March is to create a series of educational content over the month of March into early mid-April, where we are bringing on some of the best speakers in the entire industry to give conceptual idea presentations about modularity, about parts of the stack, about their thesis, about the future of modular blockchains, about interoperability, chain abstraction, about ideas for how they see modular blockchains scale in addition to their projects. So a lot of the names that we heard today, as well as some other more prominent names, will be giving presentations. We should have a series of about 12 or 15 presentations that will go live periodically throughout the month of March on the Rollup. In addition to that, we'll be hosting live panels and live streams and spaces where we will gather some of the best projects, give them a chance to kind of converse and encourage collaboration amongst the teams. We'll be doing live game shows with cash prizes on Coinbeats. I'm sure that you guys have heard of that from Patrick. So very excited to kind of test some of your knowledge about these panels and presentations on Coinbeats. We're going to make the questions, pretty solid. So definitely if you watch the presentations, you'll have a huge edge. And we'll also be providing intern notes so you guys can read through that if you don't have time to watch the whole videos, and doing some other cool NFTs and POAPs involved. And the goal here is just really to spread this idea of modularity and grow the general mind share around this, as myself, the Rollup, and Modular Media, as well as Coinbeats and our other various partners, truly believe that this idea is something that can permeate the minds of many people within Web3 and outside, and can really help grow the pie for everybody, and that we ought to start to think in a way which is futuristic and of mass scalability in this abundant block space world that we'll soon live in, due to kind of what Patrick said, where we have all these modular blockchains launching. So yes, I'm super excited, Patrick. It's gonna be fun, man.
Yeah, it's going to be cool, and definitely one of my top narratives that I'm watching for this year.
Yeah, I'm
Final
curious.
question.
What else? Yeah,
What
do
other
I get a
narratives?
question here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
What else are you very bullish on that I might just be overlooking?
DPIN is one, decentralized physical infrastructure, and I like that for two reasons. First off, it has a strong synergy with artificial intelligence, where you have networks like Render and Akash that are offering decentralized GPU mining. Third reason, there's actually three reasons. Second reason is that it's easy to explain to people, which I think is important if you get a lot of new people coming into crypto. And then the third reason is that I feel like, in a sense, all blockchains and mining rewards and those things, basically, it's all decentralized physical infrastructure. And I think that one of the core values of being able to issue tokens in this way is that you can basically bootstrap a decentralized network. And in the past, that was for running these financial applications or payments largely, but you could also have it for something like Helium that's offering mobile and Wi-Fi services, or you could have it for something like Akash that's offering cloud computing. And so I think that one is pretty interesting to me. It's not a secret that I like Solana. I've got the picture of it behind me. I actually have an ETH one too, but you can't see it because the screen is short right
I
now.
actually
But I
took my little ultrasound money out of my Twitter handle to step away from ETH maximalism for this cycle.
Oh yeah, no, but I like modular thesis rollups and everything, but I also am still very interested in Solana. I mean, that's probably the chain I cover the most on this channel. And then, but I don't think that's a surprise to you either.
No,
and then
I think, yeah.
one I started to get into recently, that is on some people's radar, but I don't know if it's on yours, is this Bitcoin DeFi.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of money in Bitcoin, and I feel like there was some hesitancy by some members of the Bitcoin community to go out into DeFi, but it's something that there's been a lot of new sort of protocols for running it launching recently. Stacks has a major upgrade coming, and I think that's something that could do very well.
Yeah,
But
Bitcoin
it's not something I've ever
rollups,
covered on this channel.
Bitcoin NFTs, DeFi. I agree. I totally think that's great. And also on the Solana front, no modular blockchain can really compete with Solana right now in terms of throughput and its parallelization. The only way that we compete is that we compete as a industry of like modular chains or versus monolithic, or even just to kind of push the entire thing forward, is modular chains need to get away from the EVM and use something like a Solana VM or a Move VM or different VMs which offer similar properties to Solana, like parallel transactions and local fee markets and things, which effectively allow Solana to scale maximum. So Solana and Sei and these high throughput blockchain suite and things, I think they are where people a lot of new users will come. I think this modular thesis is a bit more, it's dependent on chain abstraction, where if you've got thousands of different modular blockchains, you've got to have a user interface which does not require bridging on a different dApp and like disintegrated, fragmented liquidity. So it'll be interesting to kind of see that play out. And then deepen, you can just kind of bootstrap new possibilities using this physical hardware network. So it can kind of expand to anything. It is like there's got to be so many use cases for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are. I think the biggest, because I am open to differing perspectives always, the best criticism I've heard of the deepen thesis is that in many cases it could be less efficient than running, for example, in a lot of the networks now offer cheap cloud computing or cheap storage, but one solid counter argument I heard is that in aggregate it could be less efficient than, for example, having someone who's just running servers. And if you're an app developer, in most cases, decentralization probably isn't your priority. Your priority is getting the most efficient, fastest, cheapest storage or cloud computing.
Yeah.
However, as we've seen with certain things like Helium, they're able to offer a pretty affordable mobile plan, and they're able to do it using their decentralized network. And I think that the ability to actually bootstrap these networks with sometimes tens of thousands of nodes and use assets that otherwise weren't being used at all, I think that's going to be something that will attract a lot of use and attention.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, man. your performance of your portfolio changes dramatically when you develop your own convictions, your own theses, and you stick to them. You get stronger hands, stronger mindset, and you can
Mhm.
act. You can hear different opinions, but ultimately, like, yeah, having those convictions kind of can take you to that
Mhm.
next level. So I don't know if you had one last question or if you wanted to wrap up, but generally, I just it's been a great conversation thus
Yeah,
far.
great conversation. I do have one more question. One more question. Um, Rollup, I would say I consider Rollup to be pretty successful. But if you were starting from scratch now, what business in crypto would you start?
Yeah, I was telling this to a different guy the other day in person at lunch. Um, I was like, man, there's no better project. There's no better way to like make a ton of money in crypto. And I have two answers here. One, off strictly financial. Obviously, it's going to come with tons of stress, legal, and all this other stuff. Is to be a co-founder of a project that's actually really freaking good, because the team usually gets like 7 to 10%, and so you end up getting a really solid percentage of supply of coins that's worth in the billions. That's obviously like unreal. So that's like from the economic perspective, but that takes 5 years, 6 years, or more, and takes funding, stress, legal, community, hiring, all that stuff. It is a huge burden. What I think is more feasible for most people, and kind of like if I was to start new, what I would try to do is I basically try to start growing some sort of brand on Twitter, basically, or a Farcaster. Um, and then I would leverage that to get a really damn good job at a crypto company that I am really bullish on. And if the financials work, I would negotiate a little bit less of salary and try to get a big token package. And that is kind of what I would take from my path. Unless I was so set on wanting to be an entrepreneur, I would build up an account and try to go that route, and really kind of be a part of a crypto team and build that experience, which then you can go and leverage to get a better role elsewhere, as far as like contributing to the space. Um, Otherwise, man, I've always wanted to start like a data analytics type of blockchain analysis company and sell that information and research to like huge entities like TradFi, ETF buyers, and things. So, there's some ideas. I know there was not one answer, but that's where my
No, it
head
was great.
goes.
It was great. Yeah, people underrate the crypto jobs. I mean, you made it sound so appealing. I was thinking, listen to that. I was like, maybe I should close up shop, shut down the channel, and try to get one of those token allocation jobs myself. Not really. Don't worry, everybody.
It's
I,
not
I
going
enjoy what I
anywhere.
do, but I will say a lot of the best entrepreneurs I've met over the past few years. I mean, this is in general, but especially in crypto, a lot of them had worked at some sort of protocol first before starting their own thing, or they did it concurrently with if they were making content, they also worked at a protocol.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you experience, crypto, and teaches you how to be a crypto native and things, which I think is very valuable. So,
Yeah,
um,
totally. Yeah, and now is a good time. I'll say when I really started
people are
growing this
hiring.
channel a lot in summer of 2022. I mean, I started the channel in first half of 21, but when I was really trying to grow it in summer 2022, I also tried applying for jobs and no one was hiring. I applied for a whole bunch of stuff. I think I had like across all my accounts maybe 15,000 subscribers at the time, so I had a little bit of an audience, but I applied for a ton of stuff. I didn't get anything. So I said, okay, I'll work on something myself. But if people are watching this, you should totally try to see if you can get some experience because it's very tough to bootstrap something yourself.
Yeah, now's the time as
Mhm.
well, like you said. So, well, Patrick, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation, um, and I'm gonna look more into DePIN and look more into Bitcoin, DeFi, and rollups.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to follow Andy. His Twitter is pinned on the screen, and be sure to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this one.